welcome to episode 5 of Indie Pub News with Michael Gallagher. Today we have the pleasure of interviewing William J. Goyette, the proud author of a gritty, hard-boiled police procedural that sells consistently well. In Our Blood, a Jake Hawksworthy thriller. Picture it, the likes of Sam Spade and Philip Marlowe chewing the fat with Goyette's tough, on the outside, yet vulnerable protagonist, Jake Hawksworth. We're in for a treat today. A warm welcome to Bill Goyette. So welcome, Bill Goyette, the author of a new book, which he's going to tell us about. Publishing your first novel is such a rush. I remember how proud I was when Amazon made it possible to publish without a publisher. He's got his faults, but you gotta love Jeff Bezos for leveling the playing field. What made you put pen to paper, Bill?
Thanks, Michael, for having me, first of all. Since I've been, probably when I was in my teens, I just always had a knack for writing. When I began in my career, I actually began more as an art director, but as I was designing, I was actually writing copy for my designs, and that just kind of led into a field of copywriting. So I've been working as a copywriter in the retail advertising field for over 20 years now, and I've just grown to love every type of writing. I've written everything from high tech to fashion, you name it, and I've written it. And I just always had this notion that I wanted to write a novel, and I had this idea kicking around in my head, and finally just decided to just go for it. And it started out as a short fiction, believe it or not, and then it just grew into a full-fledged novel.
Well, could you tell us a little bit about the novel? Give us a little bit of the plot without giving it away, yeah?
Sure. So it is a detective suspense thriller. It has a lot of plot twists in it. So it's pretty intricate plotting. It's not your typical by the numbers thriller. It takes some really unique twists and turns. It has some really rich character development. That's something that I really wanted to make sure I got into this novel, was the really get people connected with the characters, particularly Jake Hawksworth, the main protagonist.
Okay, and why a police procedural?
I have several relatives who have worked in the police enforcement line, and I've always been intrigued by police work. I've always been intrigued by CSI and anything to do with that type of thing. So it was just always something that intrigued me, and I just got this idea in my head one day and decided to just roll with it.
Well, you certainly have succeeded. I wonder if I could ask you a little bit about Outskirts Press. How much marketing are they doing for you, or are you responsible for the marketing?
Well, they really don't do any advertising for me. They did a great job with designing the book and the cover. They did a great cover design for me. It did go back and forth several times. They asked for my complete input, and they did pretty much deliver what I expected. But as far as the advertising goes, that's pretty much left up to me. So being in the world of advertising, I kind of had some ideas on how I wanted to promote the book. So I've done a lot of self-promoting through ads. I've done advertising through Facebook ads. I've done Twitter, LinkedIn. I actually looked into BookBub, which is supposed to be I don't know, the Holy Grail, I guess.
Yeah, it does seem to have that. It does seem to have that about it, doesn't it?
Yes, and they do have. I don't know. A lot of people may not know this, but BookBub actually has something called BookBub Partners, where you can run ads for much cheaper than you would run on their site. I've actually had some good luck with those. So you can target specific audiences. You can target people by their reading habits. So I've actually had a little luck with that. I'm finding I've actually tried many of the other book promo sites. Some I've had no luck with. Some I've had some luck with. It's all kind of just hit or miss. And some of it I think depends on what day you advertise on. I found that has made a big difference on which days of the week I advertise.
Okay, that's quite interesting. I love the atmosphere in your story. It follows a long tradition of noir tough guys and harkens back to one of my favorite all-time books. And I don't want to bloat your ego here, but I kind of had the feeling of the Maltese Falcon in your work.
Funny you say that, because I kind of had that thought in mind as well when I created Jake.
Yeah, the dialogue gets in, down, and dirty. Tell us about how you write your dialogue, Bill.
Okay, well, dialogue, that I think dialogue is actually the toughest part of writing. I think it's actually more difficult than the descriptive narrative. I've actually talked with some police officers, people in the law enforcement field, to get a feel for how they talked, just so that it had that realistic feeling. Haven't talked to any criminals, although that may have helped me with one of my characters. What I do is I read the dialogue over and over. I actually read it out loud to see if it sounds real, and if it's if it sounds a little cheesy or cliche, then I'll tend to go back and just massage it more and more.
Let's dream for a minute here. You get a movie deal, a $10 million option. Who do you see?
Right.
Who do you see in the role of Jake, and why? And don't say Humphrey Bogart.
It's funny because so many people who have read the book said, I know who would play Jake. I actually had somebody say Brian Dennehy the other day, and I'm not even sure if Brian Dennehy is still acting, but that's kind of the James Gandolfini, had he still been with us. I think he may have been able to pull off a good Jake.
Yeah.
But kind of that vulnerable, he's kind of a tough guy, but on the inside he's really not, and he's very vulnerable and really flawed character. He has a lot of issues he's dealing with in his life and from his past.
Yeah, well, that's what makes it so interesting. I love the way you use short chapters, and inside those chapters, you really keep the pace fast. Do you plan, or are you a pantster?
No, I definitely. I am a pantster for sure. I definitely did plan out those short chapters because I have found many times when I've read books in the past, I'd be into a chapter and it'd be 30 pages long and I'd be maybe 10 pages in and I'd be tired. Didn't really want to quit the chapter halfway through. So I want people to feel like they can keep reading it. I get them to the end of the chapter and then they may say, I'll read one more. And then I'll do one more. I actually found James Patterson was always good at doing that, 3-4 page chapters and kind of get you hooked. So I like to leave each chapter hanging so that they want to continue.
Boy, you certainly succeed at that. I really enjoyed that about your book.
Oh, thanks.
And when you get an idea, since you don't really plan all the time, when you get an idea, does it ever take over, or do you stick to your plan?
I definitely do not stick to the plan. What I usually do is I actually start with an outline in the beginning, and then I usually toss it out pretty quickly because I just find that the story just moves in its own direction, and it's almost as if the characters are speaking to me, telling me what they want to do next. So I found that outline. I know that works well for a lot of writers. For me, I need that more free-flowing thought process. So I just kind of let it go, and I do know how the plot will end. I do know my end game. It's just that the in between, I just kind of let it roll and just see where the characters take me.
No, that's interesting. I have the same sort of thing in my writing, but I get trapped sometimes, and it takes me about 6 months to get to the ending because of it.
Right.
How fast can you write? Do you think you can put out a couple of these novels a year?
If I didn't have my full-time job, I definitely could. I would love to be writing full time. What I'm doing now is I usually write a few hours during the evening. I'll use my weekends to try to fit in a little time. And I try to go, when I do sit down, I do try to crank out at least one chapter in one sitting, just so I'm not leaving myself hanging.
Yeah, well, it sure is an advantage too that you know all this copywriting, because that's so important with the advertising end of it. Are you using AMS ads?
I have not yet.
Yeah, they're really interesting. You can use them quite cheaply, and they let you experiment. If you've had some success with Facebook and whatnot, and BookBub, AMS might be really, really interesting for you.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to look into that. Yeah, I'm looking into as many options as I can right now.
Okay, what was the first novel you read as a youngster?
Oh boy, let's see.
That you remember, that influenced you.
I think the one I remember most from high school was The Grapes of Wrath.
Okay.
I don't know why that sticks in my head for some reason. I read a lot of Shakespeare in high school as well.
It was The Pearl for me when I was in high school.
Oh yeah, Steinbeck, right?
Yeah, and Leningen versus the Ants. I don't know if you ever. Yeah. We had to read that.
I've heard of it. I've never read it.
Yeah, well, it's a good short read. What's your favorite all-time book?
Let's see. My favorite author is Dennis Lehane. I just love Dennis Lehane. I love his style of writing. So Mystic River by him, that's just one of my favorite novels, just for the narrative alone. But aside from that, I would say something that really influenced me. You mentioned the Maltese Falcon. I loved all the Raymond Chandler things from back in the old days.
Yeah, it certainly shows in your writing. Tell us about your current project, please.
Oh, I do have another Jake Hawksworth book in the works. It's called Little Red Herrings, and I'm about 50 pages into that right now, but I've kind of sidetracked myself because I have this other novel that I've had this idea for a while. It's a mafia novel. It does not involve Jake. I tried to squeeze him into the plot, but it just wasn't working. And I kind of put Little Red Herrings to the side just for a moment so that I can crank that other one out, and then I'm going to jump right back into that book because I know a lot of people have said they're looking for the next Jake book.
Boy, that sounds great. Your book's ranking that makes your sales have been very consistent since you launched in April. Most books suffer a drop-off after about 2 or 3 months, even the successful ones. What do you attribute to your continuing and consistent sales success?
I just really trying to get the word out there. I do take advantage of the free, something that most authors starting out should do is take advantage of the free promo sites. Some of them maybe don't work that well, but they're free. So, you give it a gamble, and if it works, it works. I actually had a couple of those free promo sites that promoted with them. I saw some bumps in sales for those particular days. So I definitely recommend those. And then as well as the paid sites as well. You can find some pretty cheap ones out there, and some you just have to kind of play with it and see what works and what doesn't. I've had a couple that were really successful, so I would go on and check my rankings, and I would be surprised that that particular day I had a huge jump in sales, and I attribute it to that particular promo site. So I think it's and again, I mentioned the days of the week. I find for some reason Wednesdays and the weekends seem to be the best days to promote. I don't know why that is. I don't know why Wednesday is the big day for people to go online and look at books, but it seems to work.
Okay, well, this has been a really nice experience for me, Bill. I'd like to thank you for taking the time out of your obviously busy schedule, working full-time, and writing novels. And I'd like to offer you all the luck you can imagine. And I'll get in touch with you again when you're bringing your next book out. If you get in touch with me, we can do this again. I'd really like that.
Oh, absolutely. I'll let you know when the book's coming out, definitely.
Okay, well, thanks a lot, Bill.
All right, Michael. I appreciate it.
Thanks to all Indie Pub listeners for dropping by today to listen to Bill Goyette. I really enjoyed In Our Blood because the noir atmosphere harkened back to one of my all-time favorite reads, The Maltese Falcon. Dying to grab your copy of In Our Blood? Amazon's the place to go. You might want to like William's Facebook page too. Don't forget to sign up for Indie Pub News on iTunes or any of your favorite podcast channels on the top of the Indie Pub News page. Thanks so much for listening today. See you soon.